we're all telling a story. No, video game for me is an art. It's the most immersive. It can be the most immersive type of storytelling and the immersive experience out there because you're actually part of it. And the challenge is how we make people not only be immersed but also understand the message that we're trying to pass on. How we get people to understand what the gameplay is about, what the story is about, and what the game expects of the player and what the player can expect of the game.
Okay, and so I want to introduce you to Felipe Senise, who came on board our project probably what I would say is roughly halfway through the timeline, but right at the beginning of like mass production for the game as a games designer. Now everyone on the team has been bringing different levels of games design to the table, some more technical, but at the end of the day Philippe got to focus exclusively on essentially bringing life to the levels and fleshing them out and balancing them and doing all the finer details, and I wanted to give him an opportunity to talk about his role on the project. So here you are, Philippe. Do you want to tell us a bit about your background?
Oh yeah, of course. Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk a bit about myself. But I always say that the start of everything is the game. It's everything that we came together to build it. So yeah, I came into this. I started working in games, and it was never really planned. Because like my family, we have a bunch of lawyers in my family and stuff like that. So it's not something I planned. When I first started college, I did like a semester of law, then I didn't really enjoy it and I dropped out, and then I went to do journalism, and then I moved to the US for college, so I was kind of all over the place. But then when the pandemic started, I had a really good time to actually try to find myself in something different. And at that time it was esports basically, but then from there I went to work as QA and then translation also. And I decided to quit my QA job because I really fell in love watching the devs make the game and reacting to how they made stuff and trying to find flaws in it and trying to help them fix bugs and stuff like that. And I really looked at their work and said, you know what, I really wish I could do something like that. I really wish I could experience that side of the development. So I quit my job in a foolish move and I started creating my own project.
Yeah.
And once I had like almost a year developing, and don't get me wrong, I had zero experience with it. So I basically downloaded Unity and I started messing with it and watching a bunch of videos online on how to learn Unity, how to learn the basics of programming. I had a friend who knew a bit of programming help me out in the prototype that I was making, and then I learned about how to make GTDs, and then I did a bunch of online courses. So I did a Code Monkey course, which was great for me to learn a lot of how you go about building a game. And I got to a point where I was like, you know what, this idea that I have is just too big for one guy. I need to get funding and try to make a team so we can build
feature creep. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then I started pitching my game to a bunch of people, and then I found your post on LinkedIn, and I was like, you know what, let's give this a shot. And I remember that on my email, I actually spoke way more about my project than I spoke about myself for the role that you were looking for. And I actually don't know if the project itself made me get the job or if it was something else.
I'm sure there's lots of factors, but I do remember that you were a very good communicator and you knew what you were talking about, and you'd done all these videos talking about your work, and it's just like that is a really key component of this, being able to talk out all of those sorts of issues. And so yeah, we took the risk on you and it paid off.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so yeah, I think I approached the development from a different angle because it's not something that I uh, planned to do. It kind of just the life just threw me in that direction, and I completely embraced it. And don't get me wrong, I was really really nerdy before that.
Yeah.
Like like Rainbow Six Siege, watching every stream of competitive FPS gaming and comic books out of the wazoo, and you know, movies and whatever. But oh man, it went up to 200% now. It's just something that I really appreciate, because now it's something that I can share. Now that I have a daughter, I share it with my daughter. I know she sees me working and she wants to come and sit next to me and watch me doing this stuff. So it's just something that I can only imagine how fun it is, because my father was a teacher, so I couldn't watch him work. And for her, it's just really fun. She knows when I'm testing something, she wants to grab the controller and stuff like that. So it's something that it changed my life in many ways. And yeah, so I got here through a bit of a different path than most people would. I had a game and I really wanted to succeed, and I guess that's how I got here.
Yeah, and we were looking for somebody to essentially run with the stuff that I'd started to do. Other team members were already pecking at like laying out levels more, but for the most part there was so much technical requirements that those team members needed to focus on. We needed somebody who could really get into the weeds with actual level layout. As a rule of thumb, I know I was basically sort of trying to block out the overall shape of the path through a level. And then I might have started putting a few things down, but I really did hand off to Felipe at that point to try and figure out exactly where to put the obstacles, where to put the baddies, and so he took on all of that and then just did it like for most of the rest of the game. We had a prototype. You were saying earlier that we had the second level was kind of started and you took in on the... Do you want to talk about that?
Oh yeah, of course. So, the level design for me is one of the parts that I had most fun doing it, because so I tried to go pro on esports before, so and in shooters, and there is a lot of studying of maps and layouts and timings of how you get to a certain spot before the enemy and stuff like that. Mainly Siege, which is a very complex game, and this is something that I always imagined myself doing, kind of level design stuff. And when I started, and the first task that you gave me was like, okay, so we're up to the what we'd call 400, which is the second level of the game.
Yeah, our internal code for it was 400. Yeah.
yeah, and in the second level of the game onwards, you will start creating stuff. And then I looked up how you approached in the prototype, and I took a bit more time to play games that shared a few features like dodging obstacles and stuff like that. And I tried to add that with kind of this concept of waves of enemies and timings. That's something that I have a lot of experience with because of my nerdiness with shooters. But yeah, it was super fun. And from 400 on, I tried to add more and more of a progression in terms of how many things you have to deal at once. So not only just spamming more of the same, but adding more of doing more stuff at the same time. Because if you look at 400, so basically the first stretch of the level is very story based, right? And then you have this section when you learn how to use the toggle, and in that section there's a little room afterwards where you spot Alpha for the first time in that level, and then you have to combine toggle and shooting. And then you go from that to a kind of more like bullet hell-ish moment where if you don't hit your target early on, they're gonna start piling up, because Alpha goes around spawning drones, and you already have a couple of pre-placed drones there. And if you don't hit your shot in the first 2 tries, then it's not one target at a time. It starts piling up, and you get a lot more enemies at a time. Which is, it felt like a good build-up for what is the boss fight, which is basically a bunch of drones at the same time. And then after that, we went back to dodging, which was something that was very light in the level until the very last stretch of the level, which is that section where you have to destroy the infected nodes. And then we close off with another heavy story section. And as you see, that was the first level that I really had a big impact in. And I remember that early on, I wanted to do something that you even mentioned to me. That was an idea we had before, which was to split, have options of path for a player to go.
Oh yeah, we would have loved to have done that. In the end, we just had to simplify.
Yeah, no, we can touch that later, but it's really funny. Just kick my head. It's really funny of how you, from the outside perspective, you think, oh, it's an indie studio. They can take their time to do whatever they desire. They don't have a huge publisher pressing them to publish their game next year. But that's not really the truth. We still gotta pay bills. But from like, and that's how I thought in the beginning of working in this project. Like, it's gonna be awesome. We're gonna have a time that we want to do stuff, and that's not really true. And I remember that I did that kind of a bridge and had a bunch of gaps in it, and you could go up to play kind of this floor, and then if you stood up again, you would look over the bridge, so you could look under and over.
Okay.
But it was just messy because we have one path going through it.
Yes.
And it didn't pan out very well for like a second level of the game. It was just way too chaotic. So I started to understand how our progression would work in terms of the macro scale. And for 700, it's a level that we switch things up kind of.
Yeah, so 700 is a level where the core idea is that you're chasing down buildings and other tall objects, trying to save characters and drop that have jumped off and are falling, and you have to save them and put them through portals. But ultimately, it's all about going down, and so the emphasis was quite different. Like, it wasn't about shooting drones. This one, all of a sudden, it was more about dodging and collecting.
Yeah, and so what? Because we have a few different types of levels in the game, right? And that's what I found so engaging in our project, is that we don't do the same thing over and over again. Because the first level, you're protecting a character essentially through like 80% of the level. Then the second level, it's dodging and shooting, but never at the same time. We kind of scale it. And then the third level, it's what I would call a dodge and reach, because you're basically dodging obstacles and reaching to save people to reach your goal. And then once we jump to the fourth level, it is, if I'm not mistaken, you go back to the dodging and shooting, and then where the progression of that type of level begins to scale. Because since we had 3 levels and 3 different type of gameplay, different styles of gameplay, they don't scale from one to another. They are just different approaches. They scale in difficulty, that's for sure, but they're not in the same vein of gameplay. And I remember that for the level 1000, the one in the building that we go down the spiral, that's where that's where it really started to build up in terms of difficulty, because the spacing between obstacles became tighter, and we started adding more enemies coming behind, like popping out behind obstacles, or shooting you to the floor underneath. And that's where it's the first level, if you come to think about it. This is the first dodge and shoot level, where you have enemies shooting you at the same time that you have to dodge and collect stuff. So it's a really build up for that moment, because level 1 you're protecting, level 2 you're dodging and shooting, level 3 you're collecting and dodging, and then level 3 you start to do all of those things at the same time. And then of course,
it's a lot more close range, because you're inside of a building and you're constantly taking corners, going around corners and things.
Yeah, no, I remember that not level 4, but the second to last level, I recorded myself playing for our internal testing, and I was like moving around like crazy.
Yeah, that was the goal. We were always trying to get like the player moving, get their heart rates up and everything. But we had to progress to it. So like level 4 definitely couldn't have been any earlier, because there's a lot of turning. I mean, basically you're just getting turned around all the time.
Yeah, and it was really fun because you really see the build-up of it. And I think once the thing that I really proud about myself in this project is how we as a team achieved a really smooth curve of difficulty in the game. So if you throw someone who hasn't played a game in the first level, they will probably be able to beat it in the first 3 to 5 tries maximum. That's our goal. But if you give someone who never played the game the second to last level, and the last level, they will have a terrible time trying to beat it first try. And that just shows, because it's really gradual, but at the same time we're able to bring variety to it. And that's something that I don't think it's really easy, because we're not doing the same thing over and over and just making it difficult. We're making 3 different types of level and trying to improve their difficulty as you play. And that's something that I thought would be a challenge when I first experienced the first 4 levels.
And some of the other things we had to think about was we were trying to stop players worrying about not worry, but stop them from having to take too many turns too early, so that they had a gradual build-up, which is why the first level was basically straight. Second level has only got 3 or 4 major turns in it, and then third level is basically straight but now going down. So it's not till the 4th level that you're really doing a lot of turns and rotations, and then as the later levels kick in, we're going in up, down, left, right, all over the place. And so we had to build to that. Then there was also the speed. So it was always a worry that earlier levels were going to be too slow, but we had to let people in really slowly, weren't we? So there was a lot of balancing on speeds. Like I wrote some theoretical numbers down in a spreadsheet and said try to keep it down to these speeds, but really eventually you have to do whatever feels right. And so we were often saying, is this too fast? Is it too slow? How long are we spending on this? Yeah,
and that's, I think, in terms of design, and you just mentioned something first off that I want just to mention. You said that the number of turns and loops we did in each level. Yes, until level 4 is when we start rotating, but at the second to last level, if you look on Unreal, if you go on Unreal, pan out for that moment where we have basically the environment coming at the player as the player is rotating.
Yes.
You know what? So that's basically like 6 loops straight off of a roller coaster. It's just, if you look at it, it's just like, so you don't feel it in game. It's really interesting.
Yeah, that was an interesting. We were trying to, I always wanted to get to a point where we could be spiraling up and down, around and everywhere. So you're shooting up and now you're shooting down and all this kind of stuff. But that particular section was a trick on the player. Essentially, I'll try and visualize it here. You're flying along in one particular direction, and the path the player actually takes is a corkscrew like this, and then coming out the other side. But we actually build a double-lengthed corkscrew that moves down like this. It's kind of moving towards the player as they're in it. So even though they physically only do, I think it's essentially 2 rotations, there's an extra 2 rotations thrown at the player because the tunnels are moving towards it. It's like going down a tunnel and the tunnel's moving as fast as you're moving. So it feels like you're going twice as far. So it's very deceptive because you kind of got this feeling of like, whoa, I'm going really fast, but it's not actually like making you, you're not having to physically move that fast because the tunnel's doing half the work for you. And it was just like, how can we weird out the player and not have them notice?
And especially if you guys have played the game or should play the game. Look at the walls. It has kind of this different-ish material because we wanted to make it seem like really the level is moving with you, and it really is, but it's not with you.
That was more of a technical problem actually, because we couldn't. Like we have at that point we've got walls that are undulating and moving and generating particles and all kinds of stuff, and at that particular moment, well, basically, I don't think we could get the hardware to do the movement of the whole structure as well as the undulation without some errors on the quest, and so we had to change the material properties of it.
And then we went with one of the materials that it actually. Because the quirk does like this kind of wobbly motion, right? And we went with a material that basically moves just in one direction. And then I remember testing a couple of different materials because the issues we had with the wobbly one was that we started to have a bunch of tiny
Holes.
gaps.
Yeah, you would look
Yeah,
around and it was like,
yeah.
there's a hole in the environment over there and there. What's that?
Yeah.
And it was just
Yeah.
glitching on and off.
Yeah, and then once we did that, it's at least in my experience, it felt like it was faster, but I didn't change anything in relation to speed. It was just how the environment acted to how itself was moving.
Yeah.
It's just really interesting, and that's something that I think is the biggest challenge, especially in the games, because we can't have 500 people QA testing our game. So it's how we predict how the player will react to stuff. Because I am building a level and I place an obstacle here, another obstacle here, and a collectible behind the second obstacle on the top. So I know that I have to dodge right, left, and up to collect the obstacle.
Right.
But the nuance of making the player understand where he needs to do without being too easy or too hard, and being clear that no, you're not supposed to go underneath this time. You're supposed to go around it, or if you go underneath, you have a penalty or a different reward. That's the difficult part, because I would watch Julie sometimes playing, and I would have a difficult layout of obstacles, and she would just do something that I never thought in my life. She was just, oh, this thing is in the middle of the track, there's a collectible there, but she just put to the left, and she just skipped like 5 obstacles at once. So it's just a lot of trial and error, and not only that, you have to put your thinking cap and try to put yourself in the shoes of someone who has not experienced the birth of that moment, someone who has not experienced the build up to what is there. And I think that is the biggest challenge in design, to be able to, because at the end of the day, we're all kind of we're all telling a story. Video game for me is an art. It's the most immersive. It can be the most immersive type of storytelling and the most immersive experience out there, because you're actually part of it. And the challenge is how we make people not only be immersed but also understand the message that we're trying to pass on. How we get people to understand what the gameplay is about, what the story is about, and what the game expects of the player and what the player can expect of the game too. That's, I think, a really challenging topic, and it started to get way too philosophical. But yeah, that's kind of one thing that I always think about, and that's why I had my wife test the game a lot.
Oh, right.
She could not see me working. I would be working, and she would. I mean, her desk is just behind me, so she would not be sitting here all day because she has different work hours as I do. So she would walk in, I would be doing something, and I would just turn around and start talking to her and trying to not show her exactly my thought process. I noticed that a couple of times she wanted to watch me work to see how it is that you make something like a video game. But I tried to avoid her from seeing the logic I was going through. Of course, it was a bit inevitable at times, but it's really fun watching someone who has never played a game play it for the first time. It is the best part of it.
But then there's also different people are going to approach it in different ways. I mean, for example, when we play it, we're kind of disposable with it because we know we're not keeping that save game and we're not trying to accumulate all of the extras next. I mean, I instinctively do tend to reach for most of the collectibles, but you don't take a very high risk because you're just thinking, well, I'm just testing, I'm not actually doing this for real. So sometimes you're not doing what a real player might actually do. Yeah,
exactly. And that's because we are on the developer seat, right?
Yeah.
And that's the real challenge here, is to be able to try to think as if you were a player, but not only one type of player. You need to try to be able to think as if you were a newbie or an insanely great player. You need to put yourself in all this.
I noticed a long time ago that as a games developer, it actually affects the way you play, full stop. Once you've worked in games for a while, you tend to get a little bit more blasé about taking hits and things, because it's like, well, this isn't real, like this, I'm not going to, it doesn't really matter if I die and come back, sort of thing. And so ever since my first gaming job, I play all games that way a little bit. I become a bullet sponge, and I take hits all the time because I'm thinking most of the time it doesn't matter until it actually does. If it actually does, if I find hit the threshold where I'm dying a lot, then it's like, okay, I'm going to pay it more attention. But I am maybe not a more normal player in that sense. So if you play a game looking for the patterns, and then you get a sense of how they think. And then after a while, you're like, okay, I know they're going to have hidden something around this particular corner. And so you start looking where you think that pattern is. And that's one of the fun things about it, is just trying to figure out what their flow is, you know.
Yeah, it is really fun. It's not how most people play video games, but that's...
But it can give you a bit of a reward, because especially in a game where you've got the freedom to move anywhere, you're like, okay, I'm going to take this extra 20% of my time looking for things that most people are probably not looking for. Things like that. So in our case, we actually could hide stuff, and that was again on you mostly, placing things like in key hidden spots and.
Did I hide something? I don't know. I haven't figured out.
Plus, we've got the realm toggling. So just to clarify, we have this mode where you press the A button and it toggles the things in and out of existence. So you can pass through some things that were there before, and you can hide things in key places as well. So that was also on you. You were laying things out.
Enjoying the game the most. Yeah, I did play the game a handful of times, as you can imagine. But not only as testing, I try to play the game as if I was, as I said, I try to put myself in the shoes of the actual players. And the way that I enjoy playing the game the most is actually pretty counterintuitive. I like playing on the second tiniest scale, so scale 2, even scale 1, in hard mode.
Okay.
Because then I like just how snappy you can just do this to dodge a bunch of stuff. And if you're playing it on the larger scale, you have to almost run around your room.
Yes. Yeah.
But I just like the precise movements of doing stuff like that, and that's how I really enjoy playing. And for the hard mode, I really went to town with this kind of thing. Just sharp movements required to collect all the collectibles, or I changed the timings of a few things just to try to make it a bit more difficult to hit. So we have a bunch of drones that keep strafing behind objects, and what I did actually is have them so they have the trigger in the thing, right, in the path of the player. And what I did was actually have a second trigger for that specific difficulty, so that we could delay the drone movement. So instead of seeing people play shooters all the time, so let's say CS, instead of the character actually strafing out of the wall the whole way, just do this, just a really peek, and that it's harder to hit. So that's the kind of concepts I had. So yeah, you can see I take a lot of concepts from FPS. But yeah, so that's kind of the approach I had, make more difficult to hit enemies. Not most cases I did not change how much the enemy shoot you, but we know that I think in more instances the enemies deal more damage, right?
Might do, yes. I think there's some broad strokes that we put in there program-wise in order to adjust the firing rates, things like that.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. And of course, Honor helped me a lot, and I have to shout out Honor because he allowed me to have a tag for each different difficulty in basically everything in the game. Right. So if you play, and that's also really cool because it adds replayability to the game. So you can play once in easy if you feel like it, and once in normal, and once hard, and the obstacles change. The obstacles really do change. So if you play I'm tempted to say the number again, but the code name we use for level. But the one that you play as Super Jackie, spoilers alert, you want to play Super Jackie.
The first time, so that's going to be 1700, which is level 5 or 6?
Yeah, exactly. And in the last stretch, you go in between those buildings, and there's a blimp on top of the buildings, and the drones come down, right?
Yeah.
In normal mode, you only have a couple obstacles there, so you have to dodge like 2 times, and then you focus on shooting and protecting Firestorm and Jackie. But in hard mode, I added an lift, a construction lift that you have to dodge, and then I added a bunch of scaffoldings too that you have to dodge. So you basically constantly dodging while shooting to make it more difficult. So yeah, the kind of the idea that I had was to make it more difficult to collect stuff and kill enemies in the hard mode, as well as overwhelm the player a bit more.
Yeah, a lot of it comes down to that, actually. We're drip feeding them mechanics as you go through the first half of the game, really. And each time you're sort of like, okay, now you have to worry about 2 things. Now you have to worry about 3 things, and so on. So that's what it is. It's like the balance of how many things you have to worry about at the same time. And if you sort of get lazy on one of those things, you're probably going to suffer.
Yeah, and in exactly that, because my wife, one of the games that my wife loves the most is Papers, Please, and the game is basically that. So you sign in papers in the border for a country, and at first you only have to check their nationality, and then you have to check the city, and then you have to check the birthday, and then it starts to overwhelm you with a lot of information, and you have to react somewhat quickly because you have a quota to fill and stuff like that, if I'm not mistaken. And our game is kind of the same in a sense, but in our game, if you don't react stuff quick, you die, and then you have to go back, which is, it can feel a bit punishing, but that's why we had the option to lower the difficulty.
Yeah. I mean, one example of that is at the end of what used to be the prototype level, but became, what is it, level 5, I guess? That's the one that's 1700. The one where we end with the Beatrice boss. And so the Beatrice boss is one of those things where if you just stay on it, she's not that hard to kill. But if you're not paying attention, the amount of bad guys and obstacles builds up, and you will be overwhelmed by the amount of bad guys and obstacles.
Yeah, exactly. And that moment was actually a moment that we discussed a lot on how to approach it, right? I remember that at a point I had placed drones coming out of the lava, but they were like, dude, we have no time to keep adding effects to drones coming out of lava. Let's change that.
There was a logic problem with that too, because we actually have to kill the alpha drone in the lava. So if we say there are other logic drones coming out of the lava, it's like, well, how does that work?
Yeah, exactly. And then we changed this boss fight quite a bit. I remember that we had a kind of this brainstorm meeting about it. How we're going to approach this. Is it going to be sequence based? Is it going to be hard coded? And then we did kind of a mix of both, if I'm not mistaken, right?
It's mostly a sequence, but I know that Anna went in there and did a few custom things for us to bring it to life, yes.
Yeah, and I also remember that you told me a couple times that we wanted her to be like gigantic, and that's something that actually, if you, I don't know if you remember, but the prototype of my game, I also had the same idea of this. I guess sometimes I'm a little bit megalomaniac in terms of boss fight sizes. But yeah, I wanted also to have gigantic bosses, but you come across a lot of different tech difficulties when it comes to that side, especially when you have the limitations in hardware and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, one of the things was just that we had some good-looking models, but they only came up to a certain fidelity in the quest, and the bigger you make it, the more you're just stretching that low fidelity. And it doesn't look better just because it's bigger. You suddenly have to try and figure out how to put more detail into something, and we didn't have the resources to do that much.
Yeah, exactly. And the placement would be kind of weird too, right? We don't want to be fighting knees or her belly. Yeah, you want to see.
And in this scenario, it was all taking place inside of a volcano, so you were in a constrained space already, and so there was. Yeah, I did have a point where she was maybe, I want to say 4 or 5 times bigger, but it was really cumbersome. She basically couldn't move, and you couldn't get around her because she was so big in that volcano, so it was easier to make her smaller. She's still very large. She's like 10 times the size of the player, but just not even bigger. Like, we would have needed a different environment, I think, to have gone bigger than that.
Yeah, or a completely different approach, which might not work.
No.
You know? I think I told you at one point that maybe we could have her kind of outside the volcano trying to smash into the player, but that's just a completely different game because we base our movement in a path, right? And like there's only so far you can go in that type of dodging stuff. It's not like I can just grab a joystick and run my character around.
Right. And one of the things we always had to think about was, how do we justify the fact that you're on a path? Like, the player can move around as much as they have the space to do so in their room, but at the end of the day, we're kind of, to keep things interesting, we keep them kind of, most of the time they're in a trough, what do you want to call it, a valley, and so that's why it's logical. Okay, I'm progressing through this logical tunnel. But as soon as you're in more open spaces, it's like, well, how do you justify the path? And why wouldn't they fly off over here and over here? We had to come up with little reasons. Sometimes it was a story reason, sometimes it was a gameplay reason. So that was always a challenge.
Yeah, it really was, and it's good to have this kind of challenges because they really guide you in a direction, and then you can have this little seed of thought. That's where your creativity comes from. Because in that same level, in the Beatrice boss fight, I remember that I started working on adding more obstacles to the level, and you kind of replayed the level again in the last level part of the level you replayed, and it just came to my mind when I was starting on the last level that basically it's a war happening above our head, and that's why we're kind of this trenches kind of thing. And I started to think more of what's the story of this place, because once you place all the design in terms of gameplay, it all has to serve a goal, and our goal here, we are a story-driven game, so we had to imagine how do all these things correlate to story. They can't be separated, in my opinion. Like, you need to have the gameplay and the story and the environment and the sound and everything work together towards a goal, not separate. And
so we had Julia was like laying out the script and pieces of story that she wanted to deliver in certain places. For the most part, those things were locked down, and we were having to work around that. And there would be a certain amount of screen time you kind of had to expect. Oh, there was going to be a voice here, and we would get some temporary voices, put them in, and try and put the characters in roughly the right places and figure out where is the player likely to be looking, and how long does it take to get this dialogue out, and what can we do that's interesting here.
Yeah, exactly. And not only that, just like the little details, and that's interesting because I mentioned at the start of our conversation that I never really intended to go in this journey of becoming a developer. It kind of happened. But my main focus when I was in college in North Carolina was creative writing, and I guess that's something that I can that I brought to the team in a sense of level design, because you were overwhelmed with the amount of stuff you did, man. You did a lot of stuff, man. And I remember that when I first came in, Julie told me, hey, you can read the script, you can give me feedback. And she was really open to ideas, and she's really, really easy to talk to, especially if you have a question or a critic you want to make towards the story or to the overall game or whatever. You go far. And then as I read the script, more I remember, hey, the layout is working now, this level. How can I make us, everyone who made a block out before know that usually start with gray boxes, just plopping out boxes as obstacles, just squares and cylinders and triangles at times, to give the idea of what kind of movement you need to make. If that movement feels nice, then you make it look pretty. And then, trying to find stuff that fit the environment, and especially in the last level, we go through this kind of abandoned temple, which makes sense in my opinion in the story, because we have this kind of a takeover of an island, and they took. I don't want to spoil too much, but
no, you can go for it.
Go for it. Okay, and the company took the children off the island and stuff like that, and you start to go through the temple section, because you basically start in the same layout as the 1700 level, but then you take a turn and you go into this kind of temple area, and then more as you go more into the temple, we occasionally jump back and forth to other locations through portals. But the temples, if you pay attention just to the temples, forget about the little sections where you go through portals, it gets more and more destroyed and more thematic. So I took the freedom to create basically a water and fire temple, and in a way to create this reference to Zelda, and they kind of are quite short moments of gameplay, but they look very distinctive from each other, and while they still present a reference to the story, because we talk in the story, we have this moment of the rising waters that's near the nest of where the scavengers are, and then you have, of course, the moments where the scavengers fly just in front of the sun, and you look at them, and the shots look amazing, look even better than the trailer you made. And then you also have the other side of the story, which is the volcano, basically with all those human-made structures up there, sucking up all the energies and farming the Phoenix gene, basically. Can I say that? Farming?
Kind of, yeah. Harvesting.
Yeah, harvesting, yeah, exactly. So you have that duality, because you go through the water temple, then you go through a portal, through a desert, where you have the statue. And then when you go back from the portal, you go straight to the fire temple, and the fire temple is basically now filled with human stuff. So you have these devices holding portals where you have the lava coming in and out, just like because you look at the volcano and you see the pipes and you ask where is this all going, and then in the fire temple you kind of have this kind of answer, because you see, if you look at the portal, it's the Life Right building, and then there's a bunch of pipes and stuff going over there. So I try to add a lot of environmental storytelling. Of course, I could not go full on adding characters talking stuff, because we don't want to disrupt the main script, but I try to show elements of the story in the environment, and I think the level that I personally am more proud of in terms of environmental storytelling is the last level, especially because you have this, at the same time that we can reference stuff that we love, like the Zelda games, you can also keep telling the story, which makes sense.
Yeah, so if I can summarize it, so a lot of the previous levels usually had a core idea around it that influenced what the environment was going to look like, and so it sort of locked into a particular look. But the last level ends up being a culmination of lots of previous things. Partly because we don't have a lot of resources. We were an indie studio. We weren't trying to create a whole lot of new material, but we still did for the last level. But we were able to use the slipstreams as these convenient little ways to get us from one type of tone to something completely different. So you could be going through, like you were saying, sort of a watery temple-like environment. Then you would go through a slipstream tunnel, pop out the other side, and you could be in the desert. And the next minute you could be in an underground watery cave, and then another part is a big pit, and then there's a garden section, and then there's the volcano section, and at the beginning we're flying through the sky. So there's just lots of variety, but also the wonderful thing about those slipstreams was they gave us the freedom to load and unload stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're constantly having to figure out, how can I show a hint of this big thing off in the distance, but it needs to be unloaded about one corner later.
Yeah, exactly.
And the slipstreams that like encompass us, give us a wiggle, and allow us to sort of reset and unload a few things.
And I'm really proud of the team, because you said we referenced a lot of stuff that happened before, but if you think about it, from the moment that you deviate from the path to come back to the original path level, a lot of new stuff happens. Like a lot of new stuff.
Oh yeah.
Like all the garden and both temples and
so what you're referring to there is like so we made this prototype level way back in the beginning that has a bit of a maze in it, that then became level, I want to say it was level 5, 6, and basically we play that little level all the way through in 5, 6, and then we, on the last level, we sort of take a detour and go off in a different path and keep revisiting parts of that level. So it's like a little bit of here's a moment of deja vu, but we're going to address it slightly differently and extend it.
Yeah, and also I'm really proud because we didn't rely exclusively on that. We also added new stuff. That's the point I'm trying to get. So you go back to the Burning Building of the first level briefly, but if you look around, it's not the same layout. It just has the same materials, textures, environment style, but it's not the same layout. It's something brand new in terms of gameplay. Then you go back to the desert. It's also something brand new in terms of gameplay, because the first time you see the desert, you're going down kind of the side of
right. So you take a different path.
Completely different product, completely different approach of gameplay. Because when we go through the desert in the 700, you're collecting people and trying to dodge stuff, and now it's a full-on bullet hell moment. You know? It's completely different environment, different obstacles. Just the tone, and it's like you look around and say, maybe I'm near that section that I played before, and that's something really cool because you feel in the same place, but you play it completely different.
Yeah, we wanted to sort of show a different side of the story. I think in a perfect world, we would have had more time and resources to expand on the story, but reveal things from another point of view. And we made a very conscious effort to do that at the beginning of is it 1700, which is the first time you're playing with Super Jackie, we've been calling her.
Yeah.
At the very beginning, we start to show the opening scene, but then we cut to another angle to show how you see it from another character's point of view. And it's basically our Back to the Future moment where Marty McFly sees himself from the past. And she sees some of the action and herself from the past, and then she has to protect herself for the rest of the level. So the beginning of the game, you as the player are protecting Jackie, but then when you play as Super Jackie, you're protecting Super Jackie, who's also protecting Firestorm, who's also protecting Jackie. So there was lots of layers of extra stuff you have to sort of work with there.
Yeah, and I'm really proud of the team in terms of how we were able to approach different point of views in the same story and bring that to gameplay and story. That was really cool. Especially, I think my favorite levels are the 1700, and which is the third level, and the last level.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good stuff in there. If anything, I like all the levels. I just wish we had more resources to put more environments into some of the levels, so that they weren't quite as repetitive. But the gameplay is still awesome. So one of the things we did was essentially we got into a workflow where I was doing a lot of different things, and you were fairly focused on fleshing out the levels that had been handed to you. So what I would tend to do is I would play what you've put in there and give notes along the lines of more obstacles here, more dodgy stuff here, more shooting or less shooting, or that was too difficult, that was too easy, things like that. And so really all I was doing at that point was pushing dials, and it was up to you to solve those problems as you came in there, and you were trying to figure out, how do I push that level, how do I get the player to think to look left or think to look right at this moment, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think that there were a couple of times where just adjusting didn't fix it, and then because go back to again how you can put yourself in another person's position, because once you point out an issue and it becomes clear to me, I try to fix it, of course, but I don't want to lose the core concept, right? I want to keep holding on to it. But there are moments that you just have to let go. Like, I think there was like 4 or 5 moments where I just decided to scrap a whole section and rework it. And I'm really happy with the decisions at the end of the day. Of course, there was, I mentioned the bridge from the second level that I really wanted to do some of that. But there, you just have to know when you can add more stuff, or when you need to stop, take a step back, and reset or clean up the mess, you know. Because especially since we don't have huge funding, we cannot afford to just go all out on feature creep and adding levels and levels and levels.
That was definitely an element of that there, yes. So we would have to sort of rein things in. I mean, we were doing it to ourselves. There was lots of feature creep and extra ideas we were putting in there, but sometimes we'd have to do it to each other, wouldn't we? We'd just sort of say, okay, I think we're going down a path here that we cannot meet with assets and time and refinement, so we'll do something simpler here. Yeah. Sorry.
But and then again, we just I'm really happy of how we did exactly what you said. Sometimes look at it and say, let's do something simple here, but I don't think we repeated ourselves. If twice, that's a lot. We are able to keep doing different things with the amount of ingredients we already had at the time.
And that was what was nice too, is by the end of the game we had a cookbook of ingredients, as you sort of say, that you knew is like, okay, there's a gap here, and technically I can't put this kind of an asset in here because we haven't got the memory for it, so these are the ingredients we can work with in this area, flesh that out, make that interesting. There was a lot of that going on, so there would be moments where there's something a little bit empty, there was a corridor or something that didn't have much going on, and I would say, can you try putting a few of these things in here? But you would often go off on a tangent and go, I've got an idea, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, I tend to do that quite a bit. But that tangent, on my defense, is actually something that allowed me to take a look at an obstacle, and I wanted to place an obstacle in a room, and I would have placed that obstacle, and then it would be cooler if the obstacle was actually rotating. And then now in the game we have obstacles triggered by triggers. We have static obstacles. We have obstacles that are in sequences. We have obstacles that are in sequences that are looping. We have obstacles that are realm toggle obstacles, and we have a combination of a bunch of those at the same time. So that kind of came, and that's, I think, what made it easy for us to keep picking up these ingredients and making different recipes with it, because it's not always there's an obstacle and there's a bad guy to shoot. Sometimes there's an obstacle, if you press the button the obstacle is no longer there, but now you're vulnerable to the enemy. And then sometimes it's just the obstacle is moving, you need to reach something that is behind the obstacle, but the timing is bad, you need to throw the character around, or you need to take the hit and heal quickly for the next segment or stuff like that. So we're able to get all these mechanics we made and not only mix them, but twist them upside down and mix them afterwards and stuff like that. And that's also due to how we have 2 realms for shooting, 2 realms for toggling obstacles. We have a bunch of power-ups. We have different type of collectibles for points and health for each one of the realms. You have different types of obstacles, like I think I said 5 or 6 types of obstacles, and different kinds of enemies. You have enemies that have a shield. You have enemies that you need to shoot in different realms. Is just like I think we did a really good job of using the ingredients in a creative way and mixing them together later. I think I think that in terms of gameplay is where the game shines the best, is because we introduce people in a very good pace to new mechanics, and then we show the player the same mechanic from a very different angle, and they instantly know how to approach it because they know how it works. They just know, okay, so now instead of just dodging, I need to toggle and dodge because I know both stuff.
Yes.
Combination. Yeah. So yeah, that's where I think the gameplay shines the best.
And going back to something you were saying earlier, so you would have ideas that you didn't necessarily always get to put into a certain level. Sometimes it was because it created something that was too difficult too early, for example. And so that's where, in the back of our mind, we kind of knew we always wanted to do difficulty levels. And so it was like, okay, sit on that idea. We'll come back to that kind of thing. And that's when you were able to then put some stuff back in. Because unfortunately we didn't have the tools all the way through the process to just lay down all 3 difficulty levels while we were doing it. It wasn't until very late in the stage, in fact after launch, when we had the full tool set to create easy and hard modes. So that's when you were able to insert new stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I'm just really happy with the result in terms of gameplay variety and difficulty progression. This is something that I'm really proud of all of us for it. You know?
Yeah, and then you had an extra level of balancing to worry about. You kind of took this on more than me. Was we have a bar in the lobby for all the collectibles, and we had to make sure that we drip feed those collectibles, the upgrades, to the player at an appropriate pace that both helps them out and rewards them for trying a little harder. And I think we hit it just right. I mean, almost every time I played it, it was ending the curve, or the bar, all the way at the end, just as you're finishing the game. And I kind of know then that basically if I would played in a lazy way, it wouldn't have reached that far.
Yeah.
And if I pushed even harder, I'd get even higher scores from my collectibles, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, you get experience points, what I call experience points, to fill the bar in the menu from all the different actions that you do. Collecting gold flames, killing enemies, doing a couple of objectives, also give them like collecting followers and stuff like that. And the hard part there was basically knowing we are already teaching a player early on a mechanic per level, basically. How much more do we need to introduce them in between levels? Because we tell them what happens in the lobby, right? Once they reach a certain amount of XP. And the idea that I had was basically like, if you're really good, if you're a really, really good player, you will have all the upgrades unlocked before the second to last level. If you do 100% in a couple levels and near 100 in the others, you'll have all upgrades by second to last. Now, if you're an average or a more, if you're a new player, you get like 50 or 40% of stuff in all the levels. By the second to last level, you have like half of the upgrades. And that actually serves as an incentive for you, my friend, to play it again. And once you play it again and got all the upgrades, then you can try to up the difficulty. And for the great player, then if you getting all the collectibles in all the levels, then maybe you should start saving hard mode and try to do that again, because that's the challenge. That's exactly why it ties up so well with the difficulty scale, in my opinion, because we try to account for rewarding the performance of players in terms of upgrades and collectibles.
Yeah. All right. Well, I would just want to wrap it up really and sort of say that this has been an amazing experience working with you on this.
Yeah.
I'm keeping our fingers crossed that we can do more of this, and in the meantime, we'll figure out what the next project's going to be and everything. We can't talk about what that is yet. But basically, we have worked together quite closely now for a while. How long has it been? Was it like a year and a half, 2? I can't remember.
We did the interview. My daughter was in the hospital.
Okay.
She was newborn.
Okay.
And now she's 2 years and almost 3 months now.
Okay, there you go.
It's been 2 years.
Wow, time flies, and it's been a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been, and I learned. And I tell you that I told you this multiple times. I'm really grateful, especially because it's not all about getting paid. It's not all about just having something on your resume. For me, it's a lot about what you learn. And I dabbled a bit in animation to help layouts, and I got the chance to take a script that wasn't mine and try to help with storytelling, and then of course I did the stuff that I do the most, which is level design and game design. But I got the chance to experiment with a bunch of stuff. I made haptics for the first time.
Yeah.
I'm making haptic files, and that was something new. So yeah, man, I can say like I 10x my experience in Unreal.
I mean, that's the reality of making something on an indie scale. You end up having to do just about everything you can get your hands on. So the two of us just filled in a lot of gaps at the end of the day. You start to run out of certain kinds of tasks, and all of a sudden you're just looking around like, what can I do to help here, here, and here, that sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember, I remember trying to fix the XP. You're just talking about the upgrades, and then we had an issue with a line of programming because it was resetting the XP if you die.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you remember that. You will reach a checkpoint and then you die. All the XP you got before that checkpoint wouldn't count.
Oh.
And then I remember I got in the Call of Honor and I tried to fix that. I of course didn't push it, but I was just knocking my head against the wall trying to fix it, and then Honor went dead in like 5 minutes and fixed it.
Oh, yeah, that's what happens. Yes. Sometimes I waste a lot of time trying to fix something myself that someone else has the best expertise for, but you just don't really know. Anyway, it's been really great chatting to you. I think we'll wrap up here, and thanks again.
Yeah, thank you guys. Go buy the game. It's great. I'm telling you, trust me.
Whew, what a rush!